Ohio State puts off the Purdue Bugaboos, wins 41-7, although some injury bugaboos that definitely plagued this win. Some guys who weren't even here to start this game, some guys who left over the course of this game. But one guy who was here and played as long as this game and as he needed to was Kyle McCord, 16 of 28, 276 yards, 3 touchdowns, and we're grading him as we always do. And I'm going to go first because I'm going to give Kyle McCord a solid B for this game because that stat line should have been more like 20 of 28, for like 325 yards. And then we're talking about, well, that's an A performance, right? You're throwing at that percentage, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Now, however, you got to knock him down a letter grade at least. And maybe I would listen to an argument of a lower grade because he's getting a little reckless with the ball against pressure. He had the fumble that on a sack. He had another play that the grounding play, I know what he was trying to do there, but that was really borderline as to whether they were going to review that and look at it and not have it be a fumble. It's just you have to look at it in the context of the game they're about to play. Whatever he did today was good enough to beat Purdue. Was it good enough to beat Penn State? I think it was a B performance. You probably need an A performance to beat Penn State next week. Stephen, what is your grade?
I'm giving him a B-. I am going to go lower. I've graded him higher than you guys have all year, but I'm giving him a B- because I'm with you. Marvin Harrison Jr. did not have a good day. I think Xavier Johnson dropped the ball that in most rooms, I get why you drop it. Not in this Ohio State wide receiver room where the standard's a little bit higher. You got to catch that. They started the game off with an out route to Julian Fleming just to get him involved, and he dropped the ball. The wide receivers have to be better, which is a weird thing to be saying about Ohio State, but we're saying a lot of weird things about Ohio State's offense this year, so they have to be better next week, especially regardless of if they get Emeka Egbuka back or not. They need to be better. But sacks, you can always have a conversation of whose fault it was. Was it a coverage sack? Did an offensive lineman get beat? Did the quarterback hold on to the ball too long? That's a different conversation. But the strip sack, that's on you. That's ball security. And then the intentional grounding thing, that's 2 weeks in a row where instead of just taking the sack and moving on, Kyle McCord tried to do something weird. Last week he ended up throwing a ball to Chip Trainum that was a negative 18 pass play. This week it's the intentional grounding thing, and he also had one against Notre Dame. He's got to cut that out because they're about to play a college football playoff caliber team next week. At least we think so heading into next week, and he can't do that stuff. Those small mistakes are going to end up being big consequences if he does that in the next week. So I thought he had a good day, but his small little mistakes are small against Purdue, they're small against Maryland, but against Notre Dame, against Penn State, against Michigan, that might cost you the game.
The only time I've ever looked like Kyle McCord was when he fumbled that ball. He was holding it out like I hold my son's diapers as I'm walking over to the diaper pail. Andrew, are you bringing this GPA up or down?
I'm going to keep it the same. Well, actually, I'm going to bring it down technically because I'm going to go B-. I think Steven kind of took the words out of my mouth there. You can make the mistakes today against Purdue because the game's 34-0. Because the game's 41-7. Because the game ends in a lopsided score. You can't make those mistakes. You can't have that intentional grounding, maybe kind of half fumble thing against Penn State when it's 20-17 in the fourth quarter. You cannot do that. That is inexcusable to do that against Penn State in that situation. And you think back to some of the other moments of this season, the last drive against Notre Dame, he had a great drive, made a lot of great throws. Also almost threw a pick on that last drive. Like, those are the mistakes where 1 inch goes the other way. This season looks a lot different. You can't make those mistakes. Now, you did see some growth. I thought you did see some, just the evolution and maturation of a quarterback. There was one play where he had Fleming going down the seam, and he just a beat too long, he held it, and he got hit as he threw, and the throw didn't get there in time. And then there was another play later in the game where he had a blitz coming off the backside, spun out of it, reversed out of it, had a nice little look, and he was able to kind of give himself some more time, is able to buy more time. Those are the kinds of plays that you can see from him, and those are the kind of plays that you can see him growing in. But those little mistakes are still there. And Steven is exactly right. Those little mistakes are little because it's Purdue, and Purdue's not very good, and the score is lopsided. We're going to be talking a lot more about those mistakes if it's Penn State and it's 20-20 in the fourth quarter, or it's a close game in the fourth quarter or the third quarter. You just can't have those. So I think a B- is fair. I mean, if you do that performance against Penn State, maybe you bump him up a little bit because the talent is a little bit better. But for now, especially against that team, B-.
Yeah, every week I feel like he makes one throw where you're like, ooh, that's a thing. And if you just pull back a little bit on some of the recklessness or some of the getting a little bit loose with it, although he's under pressure when that happens, and you can look maybe back at the film and see it wasn't completely his fault on some of those with the guy bearing down. But if you clean that up just a little bit, I think it could really be something, and that's what Ohio State is probably going to need in the next game against Penn State. More talk about this on Buckeye Talk, and get the text where you can, 614-350-3315.